Papillodelum. Can't even pronounce the things that are in my own book. That's funny, right? We'll say that.
Yeah.
So excited to be launching our first daily PepTalk today with botanical illustrator Adriana Picker. So tune in, it's starting in about 2 minutes.
Morning. And you're going to sit here?
You ready to go?
Yes.
You ready to go? You ready to go?
Over that, I know.
You ready to go? You ready to go?
Okay. And we'll just talk shit for a bit because people won't join straight away.
Yeah, do a little intro, right?
Yeah.
Do my hair real quick. I look startled. You got clean hands?
I think so. I'm just going to delete WhatsApp screen.
Oh yeah, I'll turn my phone on. Sorry, I didn't even put it up on my Instagram. It's okay.
Do you want to do an IG live for the start with the tour?
I think we just do it and then I'll post it I'll post it be like, I just did a drawing class, you can go view it on PepTalkHer's. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Just after that. Sorry, I just feel a bit rushed.
Sorry. People in here, cool. Ah. Hello, everyone. We're going to be kicking off in just a second. Welcome.
There's
Hi all, how are you? Thanks for joining. So we've had some technical difficulties, which is like not surprising. But the good news is that we think that that's sorted. So can you hear us okay? Yeah, killer. Okay, fun. So this is Adriana.
Hi. How
We're
you
gonna
doing?
just chill for a few minutes because the correct Zoom link has just gone out now. So we'll probably give it a couple of minutes if that's cool for everyone. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Where in the world are you, Kate?
I'm currently in Seattle, Washington.
You didn't fly home?
Interesting.
Sorry, what was that?
You didn't fly home to Oz?
No. I am living here permanently, Meggie.
Well, I knew that, but I just wasn't sure with Corona if you would have like run home like I did.
No, I'm braving it out over here.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Good on you.
Good on me.
Yeah, we did not.
So are you're both on the Gold Coast now?
Yeah, so we're self-isolating for 2 weeks. And then going home, but it's very nice to be here with Meggie.
Yeah.
have a quarantine buddy.
Someone.
If you're looking for anyone else, Meggie, my mother arrived back on the Gold Coast like a day and a half ago from Sri Lanka. So she's also, she just made it in before they shut all the flights down from Singapore and Colombo. So she's going to be self-isolating too for the next 2 weeks.
I have a feeling there's a lot of people stuck around the world in places at the moment.
Right?
Yeah. Happens so quickly.
Yeah, it's very stressful for people, I think.
Well, I'm glad your mum got in.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Adriana, while we're waiting, do you want to maybe like tell everyone a little bit about your backstory and how you came to be obsessed with art, just while I try and figure out a couple of things?
So I'm a botanical illustrator, or a commercial illustrator that specializes in botanical illustration, which is a very lovely job to have or not have, as current economic climate might be. But I come from a very creative family and was always sort of like creating or painting or doing something. My mum's really talented printmaker. My grandmother could make anything that she possibly thought of. And then I went and did a design degree and decided I didn't want to be a starving artist. I wanted to be able to like make money, and I wanted to get into set and costume design in film. So after uni, I did a few jobs as a costume illustrator on film, which was really great. So I worked on like The Great Gatsby and Mad Max and a few other films like that. And it was sort of then that I realized that I was getting work, or was able to get work, because of my illustration skills, not just because of my design skills. And it was only really when I started drawing what I'm really passionate about, which is plants, that my career as an illustrator took off. So later this year, I have, in April, I have a book coming out called Petal. And it's 250 pages or 256 pages of just botanical illustration. So this is like my absolute dream project. And even though all my like in-person events has been cancelled, I'm really excited to bring it out in the world. And you know, now more than ever, I think everybody needs a bit of beauty, and especially connection to nature. And so I'm really excited to have that come out in April. It's out here in Australia in April, and in the US in like April 21st. So it's broken up by 27 chapters by plant family. So the first one is my favorite, which is roses. And really interesting thing about the rose plant family is it encompasses so many things that you wouldn't consider. So like any stone fruit is in the rose family. So like apples and pears and cherries are in the rose family. And also like strawberries. So some berries are in the rose family. Strawberries and raspberries and blackberries.
Stunning. I'm obsessed with this book. I love it.
And I wanted it to be like a contemporary version of a like an old school botanical illustration book. So to make it contemporary, I've tried to make really like bright, vibrant colors.
I love it.
But also more sort of the composition is a bit more contemporary in the sense that usually when you see a botanical illustration book from like a 18th century botanist, they'd have like just one specimen on the page, sort of like that. Whereas I've done like full bleed composition, which I think makes it a bit more in a lot of the illustrations, which I think makes it a bit more contemporary.
Very cool. I love it. Well, I'm hoping that we've solved our technical difficulties. So we might officially kick off if that suits.
Yeah.
So let's kick this off. We'll just get everything going. And we can just admit participants. Well, welcome to our first daily Power Pep Talk. It's such a delight to be here. You're probably like us and stuck in quarantine. We flew back from New York City into Australia 3 days ago now.
I think it's 4
days ago. Yeah. So we're on a self-imposed and rightly so 14-day quarantine. So we were a little bit bored. We figured you might be as well and looking for some stuff to do. And often I personally don't make the time to do creative endeavors like drawing. So it's such a delight to have botanical illustrator Adriana Picker with us today. She has 4 books.
This is 4 books now.
4 books.
Yeah.
So thank you. And today we're going to talk a little bit about creativity, and we're going to do some actual drawing. So if you're joining us from home, grab some paper. If you have some pencils and crayons are great. If you're like me and you don't have that, pens are also fine. Anything else that people need?
Not too much. I think that great art can be created with anything that you have on hand, and we're sort of running low on supplies as well. Meg's mum kindly dropped us off some supplies from her local primary school.
Mum's a teacher, so managed to get us some paper, which is exciting.
Have some great pencils. My favourite is Zach Love from 2B. I've stolen his pencil, which is kind of cute.
That's like, art supplies in the time of quarantine. Yeah. Right? We'll take what we can get. Before we kick off with the practical element of today's workshop, it's going to be short and sweet, team. So we're thinking 20, 25 minutes so you can get back to your daily hustle. I just want to quickly, just for people who don't know much about your work, you worked globally, you've got 4 books. You've worked with some amazing global brands with illustrations. Can you just give people, a tweet-sized summary of where your passion,
50 characters or less.
Yeah, where your passion for botanical, the botanical world and botanical art, where that comes from?
I think the genesis of that is definitely my family. So my grandmother was an incredible gardener. And when I was little, when I was about 5, she actually told my mother that I would be a florist.
Okay, so she wasn't far off.
Yeah, not at all. And then my mother is also an exceptional gardener, and I grew up in the Blue Mountains just behind Sydney.
Okay.
And we used to go on bushwalks, and she'd teach me the botanical names of plants as we were walking along. So yeah, flowers are about emotional connection to family and people and places, and they're just also beautiful.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, so we're in quarantine right now at my grandmother's house. So she has a beautiful
Meggie has
garden.
no chance than to just hang out with me.
What?
No choice. You have no
choice.
I
have no choice. That's right. I have no choice. But I'm very delighted if I had to be in quarantine with anyone. So we decided to self-quarantine together so that we wouldn't risk both of our parents' health. And we're very fortunate that my Nana's house is sitting empty because she's in a home now. But Nana has an amazing garden, and what was so nice yesterday when we were preparing for this was we were going into the garden and having a look at flowers. I don't know what any of them are called, but you know the names of all of them, which I found amazing.
Not all of them.
Well, and I just want to quickly show anyone watching at home, this is Adriana's new book, Petal, which is just such a delight, and it's got really fun, cute pink paper. And it's just been so nice to kind of like go through this with you, to hear more about like all these stunning flowers. I didn't know that was a gerania, even though they've been in gardens that I've seen and grown up in for so many years. I never knew that was called a geranium.
You told me you didn't like them.
I don't love geraniums. I've got other favourite flowers.
Yeah,
but,
fair enough.
Yeah. So what's the best way to kick off for people who are stuck at home, they're massively over it, they're potentially going to throttle whoever they're living with because it's been a couple of days now where they haven't left the house? How do they kind of like, what I love about your take on art is that it allows you to kind of literally stop, smell the roses, but also like appreciate details. That's what I kind of love about your approach to art.
So today, I'm going to do a little illustration, like demonstration, maybe from one of the actual flowers in my book. But because I think a lot of people don't potentially have access to outside at the moment, or you know, real specimens, you know, find a beautiful picture on the internet. There's like incredible inspiration on Instagram. There's so many really talented photographers on Instagram that you can take reference from. So yeah, you can start drawing from anything. And it's just a really nice way to sort of like slow down and connect with nature. I think for me, one of the most important things about learning to draw and learning to illustrate is observation. Yeah. So 50% of illustrating for me is observation. So learning how to look at an object. So what we're going to do today is like a really quick lesson on observational drawing. Okay. So it doesn't have to be a flower. It could be whatever. It could be an avocado, you know, like, so like when you look at a floral reference, so this is a geranium, it looks intimidating because it looks complex. So what I like to do is to just break it up, look at it and break it up into smaller components that are easily, like, more digestible for your brain. I mean, we all learnt to write, so we've all got an innate sense of, well, not an innate sense, like a learned skill of hand-eye coordination. Okay. And drawing, like anything, is just about practice. So the more you practice, the better you get. I used to be shit at it, but I really like doing it, so I continue doing it, right?
Well, and I'm going to guess that probably a lot of, one of my friends, Michelle, she posted the other day, she was like, I can't draw. And that's how I feel too. I consider myself creative, but not an artist. And so I look at this and I'm like, oh, this is just not for me. Like, I'm going to leave that to the pros, like Adriana.
Fair enough. Like, math isn't for me.
Sure.
Or like, spelling.
I also hate math. But, like, I'm interested that you talk a lot that, you know, anyone can break down this flower, this geranium, and draw it, actually.
I've done, you know, really amazing classes with kids. Like, I think that to me proves that, you know, if I can teach a 5-year-old how to draw something, I'm always amazed at what children come back with. It's about, like, so looking at an object and being like, you know, looking at it as a whole first for like how much room you're going to need on the page, but then breaking it up into the smaller like components. So, you know, this looks like this is a line, it looks like a pencil, or we can see like a triangle here or something. I think I'm going to do an object that's a little bit less complex than this one as an example.
So for anyone who's joining us, so if we've got a piece of paper, like where do we start? Like, okay, what do I do?
I'm gonna pick.
For someone who's not a good drawer like me.
I'm gonna pick a reference from the book and you can hold it up.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Yeah. A big hello to everyone joining us on Instagram live as well as Zoom.
Oh, is this one too complex? I don't know. We want
something colourful.
Colourful. I mean,
what about that one? No, is that too hard?
Too hard.
Okay.
Not too hard, but like, I just think we've got better options.
Okay.
Okay, let's do a hellebore.
That one? That's beautiful.
Okay. So Maggie's going to hold that for us.
Okay, so we're going to...
we're going to do that one.
So we're going to draw this one. Can everyone see that?
I was trying to read some of the botanical names from the book before to sound smart, and I couldn't even pronounce them from my own book.
There's some big names in there. So this is our reference. So I'm going to just put that there so everyone can see it.
I think just like come back a little bit. Yeah, do. Okay.
All right.
So
yeah. Good feedback.
So the first thing that I would look at when I was drawing this flower is like the biggest object first. So that's the actual flower itself, right? So this basically is a circle. So and then you break it down. It's a circle with a line coming off, right? Basically. So then you'd break it down into its like smaller components. So if I was drawing a flower that was like face on like this, I would start from the middle. So this is going to be difficult because I'm going to be trying to draw.
You're the expert. You can do it.
Do you know I don't like draw? I'm going to look at the screen actually. So I would start from the middle, from the central object. So these are like the little seed heads here of the hellebore.
So you're starting in the middle.
Yeah, but if you're not as confident as I am, I should probably, you can do like with a quick pencil, you can do like the quick shape, like full on shape of that central object, and then quickly just hang the little stem off there, and immediately you've got a little guide to work within, and you can erase those afterwards. So I'd start with the central bit, and then the next thing that I would do is look for any whole shapes. So this petal is sitting like shapes that are sitting on top of each other. So this petal is sitting on top first, so we'll just quickly fill him in. And then this one is behind, so he goes next. And then we've got another one here. So we're just like looking for whole shapes and trying to discern, you know, flowers are complex objects, but the really nice thing about flowers is that they're not, if you fuck them up a little bit, they're not proportionally correct like a face. Do you know what I mean? Like the symmetry, like if you can get away with it. Yeah.
You can take some creative license. And we should say for people, so you're a professional illustrator, and you follow a similar technique when you're starting from your illustration, don't you? Like you break it down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting thing. Like it's hard to describe. It's really difficult to describe what you do because, like, it's kind of like I don't know. It's like an athlete trying to describe how they run. It just becomes so subconscious that it's a difficult thing to describe. So I really have to think about it. Then the next thing I would draw, so this is like very roughly the shape, then I would draw this bit here, the little stem. And another trick when you're looking at an illustration is you can get a pencil and you can make straight lines from points to points to see that the composition is correct. So if I do this little leaf here, I can go back in and check and sort of see, oh yeah, that's roughly about like the same angle.
So that you know you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, totally. Or you can, you can sort of, you can do that before you draw and then, sort of place it on the page.
Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And for anyone at home, if you want to like sketch along, do your own flower, please do. And then we'd love for you to send it to us afterwards so that Adriana can give you some constructive feedback.
Some harsh critiques.
Some harsh critiques, some kind critiques.
I would never.
Yeah, so definitely if you're sketching along at home, please do that and then make sure that you post it and tag PepTalkHer and Adriana Picker so that we can have a look and see how amazing it is. You make it look very easy, I have to say.
Well, I'm sure. I should hope so. People pay me to do it. And then, so like that's roughly the shape. I mean, we're drawing with a really
You're drawing
weird.
back to front.
Back to front, bit of a weird colour. Then the next thing that I really like to do, so most of my illustration work is based around texture and colour. So we're not really focusing on colour here today. So the next sort of trick that I wanted to show you is really simply to get like shape and form into an object. Like flowers are so ephemeral and delicate that you don't want to overwhelm them with like heaps of shading or like, you know, too much. Like they tend to look like blocky and horrible.
Yeah,
So
right.
so if you have a look on like this page,
Mm-hmm.
oh sorry, the line work here, oh you can't really see it, you can see it in that one a little bit more. The line work here is just like a little bit of line work to suggest shape and form, and you can just do that like super quickly. So I would always make the lines follow the shape and the form. So I'm not going to do like to create texture or, you know, shading. I would never do a line that would go across the petal. It's always going to follow the form.
Going to go with the
with the object. And to create shading, I would like or form, I would like really quickly just make the lines a little bit thicker at the base.
And why do you make them thicker at the base?
Because that's suggesting volume.
Okay.
So the bulk of the flower is in the middle, and it like comes into the middle. Okay. So
bit of drama.
A little bit of drama. I don't know about that. It's just. So hellebores are a really lovely flower. They're from the ranunculus family, and they're a late winter flowering flower, or like really early spring. And in New York, where I've just left, they're all out at the moment. But you know, spring is not cancelled, just everything else.
Just life, yeah. Otherwise, for the interim.
Yeah, so this is the other petals down here. So I'm using a pen which is it's a brush pen. It's actually just a Crayola one, like for kids. I quite like kids. I quite like using kids' art products that are cheap because then you don't feel so precious about it. And I tend to use them a bit more, and it takes the pressure off, and you can just be creative without having that additional sort of pressure of using your fancy stuff.
Geez, that's come along well. Hey?
And then so I've just used a pen, and then another like small trick to get like an additional amount of detail would to be going with like a different medium, like maybe one of Zach's pencils from 2B.
Zach from 2B.
And just add like a second layer of, this is going to be hard to see though for people at home.
So you've used a pen and now you're using a pencil to get different texture.
Yeah, different texture, but also like
right,
a bit more shading, a bit more color without using like the real sort of heaviness of the pen.
And can you talk a little bit about when you're doing this? I noticed that like you talked a little bit before about breaking down the flower so that there's like, you know, like a straight line and a circle. Like,
yeah.
Like, can you talk about the power that it has for people to kind of like take the time out of their crazy daily schedule to kind of stop, look at a drawing or look at a real flower like we've got there and just kind of like observe the different parts and components that make up that flower?
I think,
because you find that quite calming, don't you?
Well, I think it's just a different way for me of mindfulness, and it's something that like drawing for me is really meditative, and I think it's a different way of in your like a different lens of viewing the world. So for me, it could be anything. Like I'm really passionate about flowers, so when I go for a walk or whatever, I'm always looking for new botanical inspiration, and how observing flowers in a manner that I would draw, like to be able to draw them, and looking at what visual information to include, but what visual information to discard at the same time is just as important, because as the information to include, because flowers are so complex. To draw something, to look at a botanical reference and look at all the like visual information that you're seeing in a floral reference can be overwhelming. So it's about like, how do I distill this object to its essence in a line, like in a line, basically.
Yeah.
And that's, that comes with practice, obviously, but it's just, I find it a really nice moment of mindfulness to just sit there and, look at something, and your mind stills, and you are just focusing. It's meditative. You're focusing on one distinct thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're being in the moment, and not thinking about too much else, because you're really concentrating.
Yeah. No, I love that. I've not thought of that concept before until you explained it to me. I like that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, look what you've just rattled up in like 5 minutes. Love it. So I'm hoping that everyone's at home looks this good. I'm going to give it a red hot go now. And I'll post it later. Yeah, but I'm concerned because it won't be, but that's okay.
Are you going to draw it for the fans now?
Oh, look, sure. I mean, yeah, I'll have a try.
But I can talk you through it.
Okay.
Do you want to do another one?
Sure. Let's do.
No, you have to do, because it's harder to see.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's a good idea.
You can draw. I don't think we should make Meggie draw backwards, though, should we?
No, that's a terrible idea. So I like your idea of like, you just kind of like take the line and just kind of follow.
Do you want to draw it with Zach's pencil first, though?
Yeah. So you mentioned that it's like,
I'm going to pick something for you. Oh, you want to draw the same thing?
Yeah, let's keep it simple.
All right.
Don't need to overcomplicate these things for a non-artist like me,
Oh, this is fun.
Gosh.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I've got the reference for Meggie.
Oh, that's a pretty bad. So you just draw a line.
So hers looks like more of an oval than a circle. So just correct that.
Oh, yeah. And then, so if we show everyone so they can see this, so are you also thinking about breaking it down into like, yes, that's a circular shape, but then there's kind of like little mini triangles within that?
Yeah, exactly. So you look at the overall shape first, and then you break it down into what other little shapes you can see. I did this really lovely drawing class, I think it was last year, with a bunch of preschoolers, and I was teaching them how to draw a tulip, because it was spring, I had tulips available.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, the top bit looks like, like a little bit like an oval, and then this looks like a rope or a pencil.
Yeah.
And then it got a little bit more complicated, like the leaves hanging off it got a little bit more complicated, and I couldn't really describe what the shape was. So I was like, oh, and this is like a little bit of a curly bit, isn't it? And
they were able to draw the curly bit.
Well, the gorgeous kids, everybody was like, they were so into it. Everybody was like, did their shapes, had broken down their shapes. This looks like a triangle, this looks like this. And then everybody's like, oh, we've got to do the little curly bit. And everybody did this. It was just adorable.
Okay, well, this is what I've come up with so far.
Yeah, that's basically
Don't hate it. Don't love it. Oh, a bit of reaction from our Zoom audience. Not sure if that's constructive feedback, but that's okay. And now I've got that. That's not bad. It's not bad, but it's not bad. And then what do you do? So if you're kind of like, I can get to that. Like,
okay.
If you're a bit of a numpty, now what do you do?
So, I mean, you've gone in pretty heavy-handed straight away, haven't you?
Well, look, we're on a deadline.
Yeah, okay.
We've only got another 5 minutes.
I would be like, okay.
Let's just compare the two, just quickly.
Compare the pair?
Who's spot the preschool? Spot the pro.
We all have talent.
But that's fine. Like, you got to start somewhere, team.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So I would go back to your reference and be like, so she's done this really quick little leaf to the side here, which doesn't look like it's actually at the same angle. So I'd be like, oh, I think that leaf actually comes up more like that. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you kind of you go from point to point. So from this point to that point. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I feel like the angle of the leaf is the least of my problems.
Well, we're breaking it down for the folks at home. Another thing you can do is look at the negative space. So what is this shape creating in here? Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Look at the negative space here. Is that comparable to the negative space here?
Okay. When do I get to do these bits?
You can do that now.
Okay. I'll fix the
There's
angle
no
of my
rules.
leaf.
You're an adult.
Fix the angle of my leaf.
Yeah. So if you look at I don't want to draw on. If you look at like negative space and how the objects relate to each other, as well as the actual objects themselves, the actual parts of the flower, is another trick of looking at how correct your drawing is. But again, like, I like to make things up. It doesn't have to be, artistic license.
And if anyone's sitting at home, like, with a bit of time on their hands because they can't go to work, they can't leave the house. If you're in California, it's a little bit better. If they can't leave the house, if they're in California or New York, hopefully Australia introduces similar lockdowns soon for the sake of everyone's health. Like, what's, like, if someone wants to get into like a bit of a routine of like starting to draw or like tap into their creativity, like, what's a good little like technique that you have for people?
So at the moment, there are so many beautiful artists on Instagram just really focused on creating joy and community.
Yeah.
So there's a really beautiful illustrator called Helen Deltry, and we can put that all up afterwards for everything.
Great.
I might we can put up a few links actually.
We'll put up some great
She's doing
artists,
a daily drawing,
Okay.
painting with Deltry, I think it's called, challenge. So it's a prompted, it's all floral as well. It's prompted like daily challenge. So I think yesterday was drawing like cherry blossoms or whatever. And she does a quick demonstration, and then you can post via hashtag what you've done with her. And I think that's like some really, there's some really lovely like community building things that are coming out of this situation. And it's really lovely to see. But I mean, like, getting into it like that, there's lots of sort of like drawing challenges that you can get involved with. And it's a prompt. So I think one of the hardest things creatively, if you're not like a really creative person, is finding a starting point.
Yeah, where do you start? Like,
where do you start?
If that's your starting point, like,
that is a starting point though. Don't be like that.
No, I know, but I'm just
so
want to compare it to, like, how do you get from this to this,
That's 30 years, dude.
It's not going to happen overnight, is it?
So yeah, and the other thing is a lot of artists, I'm going to do this as well, are releasing colouring sheets, printable colouring sheets, which I think is great. It's again, it's a starting point, and then you can just sort of get into that, like, rather than stressing about like, I don't want to, sorry, use that as
I'm not very good.
You can.
This is mine. This is hers.
You can get into the meditative state of just colouring something in, and So my friend Sarah is releasing daily colouring sheets.
Okay, so we can link to a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of like creative things at the moment, and if we've got a lot of time at home at the moment, so it's a great time to start a creative practice, or it's a great time to look at other. I find like watching people drawing is so relaxing. So there's there's a lot of people putting that content out at the moment.
Cool.
So if you're not creative, tap into somebody else's creativity and really enjoy it.
Learn from them.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, if anyone has any questions for Adriana, feel free to send them over. You can follow her on Instagram at Adriana Picker. It is it's similar to Petal. It's a bright feed. It's full of joy. She's such a joyous person, and that comes through in her artwork as well, which is so lovely. So highly recommend that you follow that. And again, if you're drawing along at home, please send us your sketches so that we can post them on Instagram at PepTalkHer's and at Adriana Picker, so that we can share it and give you some feedback. And you can pre-order the Petal book as well. It comes out in what, 2 weeks?
So it comes out in Australia on the 1st of April, 2nd of April, and in the States the 21st.
Yeah. So you can pre-order Petal by Adriana Picker on Amazon now. like, I can't believe you've written 4 books. That's pretty amazing.
I haven't written anything. I
Well,
wrote the introduction to this one.
4 books. And also, if you're a colouring in person at home, Adriana has 2 colouring in books that you can order online as well, and also a cocktail book, which feels rather relevant
Botanically
at the moment. Yeah, so if you're in need of a drink, I recommend that you get on board that, because great recipes, and also, like, again, it's a stunning book. Petal is my favorite, I have to say.
It's my favorite.
The new one is my favorite. So yeah, but it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be doing this every day with other amazing people. Sometimes they will be artists, sometimes they'll be authors. We've got a negotiation coach. We've got Marie Kondo, your digital life coach. We've got someone talking about abundance, manifestation. We've got someone doing a session on WTF is going on in the markets right now. If you're a share investor like I am. Yeah, so tune in for that one. You can sign up. You can sign up on our Instagram stories. That's probably the easiest way to find it, or on our bio link as well. And we're going to post some more links to the artists that Adriana recommended as well. But thank you for joining us. We know that your time is precious, even during quarantine. So thank you for taking the time out, and feel free to send us any feedback, and we're going to enjoy lots of your drawings. Hopefully they look better than mine and more like this by the professional. What would you rate this out of 10? You can be constructive. Do I want to hear this? Possibly not.
I think art is very subjective.
See, she's kind. You can post your drawings, and
art is subjective, you know, and there's different styles and movement in art. I'd call this more abstraction.
Abstract. I'm more of a Picasso type guy. So good. Well, thank you for joining. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you at the same time tomorrow for another Daily Power Pep Talk.
Have a lovely day.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Ciao.
Oofed.
I don't even know how to end it.
Did we end it here?
No, we can.